Sister Mona Hamdi will be giving a keynote on the blockchain hierarchy power and why black wealth matters. Karibu, Mona.
Assalamu alaikum.
So you can have the mic here.
I have a pretty loud voice, but I can, yeah? For the sound.
For the documentation.
For the documentation. So, you know, I believe very much in a creator who writes our destinies. So you were talking about philosophy and the future and where Africa is going, and those are all things that I am very concerned with. I am from Egypt. It's where I was raised. And I'm an ethicist and a futurist based at Harvard University. I look at the way future systems will organize around the societies and where our moral compass is shifting around the issues that we care about. A lot of that involves technology, and I've been involved in the blockchain space for a really long time, looking at the world outside of fintech and outside of crypto to see the way that it will help us as vulnerable and marginalized communities create a new order and a new system of organization in which people are equally represented and in which their voices are equal and distributed, which are, as you know, blockchain principles. So I think what I was hearing, first of all, I also have to say that we are at Howard University, and that always excites me. I have godsons who play football here as Bisons, and the lessons of Dr. Carr here about Egypt and about Africa are foundational and world-class and are a testament to our shared ancestry and fill me with dignity and pride of being Egyptian. So, you know, I get to Howard all the time. Let's see. So, yeah, I know, I might flip the whole thing over, right? So what do I do? So what does it mean to look at a future world system? We look at common language, we look at rap lyrics and comic books and parse huge amounts of data to see what people are thinking and what people are saying and what they're doing. And I'll tell you something about Africa. It is ignored largely by the developing world, but they're coming to build the infrastructure, as you know. Why? Because it's lucrative, just like Africa has always been. So a few statistics about Africa that are relevant to me and relevant to the world, which is safer, happier, richer, and less hungry now than it's ever been. And in the world that I live in, we look at 2050 as a metric for what the next 100 years will be like. So the world in 2050, what do we know about that? We know that Nigeria will be the third largest nation in the world. We know that the population will be almost 10 billion people. And we know that 86% of the world's hungry who live under $1.90 a day will be black. So while the world is getting richer, none of that, the 26 billion holders of wealth who comprise today the amount of wealth as the bottom 50%, 3.7 billion people, are all American, and none of them are black. So we know that wealth generation is increasing, but so is wealth consolidation. It is going into fewer and fewer hands, and fewer and almost no black hands. So what does that mean for the future of our planet when most of the world's people will be in the three large countries, India, China, Nigeria? Most of the world's impoverished will be from Africa, where I live. What does that mean? What does the world look like if the infrastructure of the systems of the world that you currently inhabit that persecute you or oppress you or make you voiceless are carried into the future, and how can you stop it? So to me, I look at the blockchain. I look at it in terms of sustainable development, and I look at it in terms of some of those philosophical underpinnings of what it does to inform the way that our human society should be organized. Namely, is it transparent? Is it constant? Is it reflective of the society? And is it addressing problems that are relevant to the people for which it is created? So while we are engaged in the crypto space, and that is a fantastic way to generate wealth, I would like us to redefine for Africa and for the world's black community what black wealth means. Is it just financial access and access to capital? Or is it infrastructure and systems and due process that reflect us and reflect our values and our nature and keep us safe? I see lots of instances in the United States even where there is asymmetry between the hierarchy and the structures of hierarchy and power and the manifestation of power. And that's one of the things that blockchain teaches me too, is that hierarchy and power are not the same. Because in a blockchain network, all units are equal. They're egalitarian, and they're equal arbiters of information that is parceled between them. But the power and the locus of power will change according to the application. Society is moving kind of the same way too. The hierarchy, and I work with vulnerable populations all over the world. My background is in sustainable development. I've parceled out water rations to women in countries where there is war-torn masses of refugees fleeing. I've watched pregnant women with cholera parcel out water, deciding which one of her children gets water first. Today. So what will the future hold for people like that? For me, what I've noticed, and something that makes me worried when I think about decentralized social systems, it's a really great thing for blockchain. It's a very poor thing for social organization, because often what happens is that the people who are the weakest and the most vulnerable are the first to be exploited. You can look at revolutions and see this all the time. I'd like to ask the Native Americans how they felt about the American Revolution. And I know that Thomas Jefferson said that the tree of liberty should be watered with the blood of tyrants, but as Lin-Manuel Miranda told us, he was off getting high with the French when everyone else was in the trench. So what does that mean for the future of our society? And like, I had a deck that had like Mamunia Yusuf, like Mumu Fresh lyrics that I really want, but I just heard that she like raps like Andre 3000 and I can't, so I'm not going to even quote the lyrics for you. But I do post all of my talks up with the links on Twitter and on my research page, so you can probably find her say this way more articulate than I could. But the point of the blockchain is building a social infrastructure where you don't get invited to the table because nobody invites you to the table, because it was your table all along. And that's the point of what blockchain can do, and the potential of the technology to ensure that all voices matter, because sometimes we dilute those voices too. Yes, all lives matter, but you know what? Black lives matter. They do, and they matter for the future of our planet, because when you disinclude those populations, you create weaker systems for all of us. And in order to ensure that our planet, and I'm optimistic, I believe in the future of this planet, and I believe in the future of our collective species, but we need all voices and all people at the table, and currently, it doesn't work that way. The data reflect that. That is objective, or data is neutral, lenses are not. I think that the data pretty clearly show that there are injustices that are embedded in current social practices that make sure that black people historically have less access to wealth, less access to due process, less access to adequate infrastructure. And guess what? Those are all great solutions that can be found in applications of blockchain. So what I would say is find ways to build social infrastructure outside of the crypto space that address the very problems that you care about, the very systems that keep social organization down. Because again, I don't know if revolutions are good for people who are 86% of the world's impoverished. I don't know if reparations will ever come. I don't know what the future will hold, but I do know that without the voice of a unified, thriving, equally represented society, we really have a weakened chance at surviving the challenges that we've created for ourselves. 86% of those people will be 90% of the world's hungry. And that's not even accounting for climate change. Climate change is something that here in the United States, we debate. We say, is it real or not? Outside, in the Arab world, we say, how much climate change is there? You see asymmetry between hierarchy and the manifestation of power in the United States every day outside of race, culture, and religion. When you have an sitting American president who is unable to legislate for gun control reform because of a powerful lobby, even though he's at the very tippy top of the hierarchy, there's power there that binds him from moving. You saw this when the previous US president went to Newtown. So how do hierarchy and power, and what do they have to do with black wealth? What is the definition of black wealth for the future, aside from access to markets, aside from aside from fiduciary responsibility, and aside from generation of actual capital. To me, it's global wealth. And it's something that's going to be built with or without your voice, with or without my voice. It's going to be quite lucrative. If you look at the, I mean, that's why people are doing it. When you look at remittances, I mean, that's one of the very first ways. It's not surprising that we use blockchain. The very first applications of it were the very easy ways of commodification, because that's what humans always do with tools. We're a really innovative species at doing that, right? What comes next? That's up to us. The way that we use the technology, the way that we use those tools, in my mind, will make us stronger when we address those very prejudices, those very biases, and those very structural, it's called structural violence for a reason, because it embeds people and entrenches them in a system that they cannot escape from, or that they find is very high friction to escape from. The problem with that is that what we're seeing in the applications of technology today, some of those very same biases, prejudices, and violences are being interpolated into the technology of the future. Do you need proof of that? Is there a reason that AI doesn't recognize black faces? Is there a reason driverless cars can't see black bodies? Who's building it? Is it equally represented by black engineers? No. Where are those tech companies? The smartest people, the most innovative people, my father's a physician from Egypt, and he came to the United States. He was in New York, and he said that he found it a piece of cake. Why? Because in Egypt, he had to manually vent a patient when the electricity went out. He was scrappy and he was a hustler, and I know lots of people from Nigeria, we were talking about the Nigerian example and the Ugandan example, who do that kind of thing every day. How will we innovate the future, making sure that all voices and all access at the table? We build the blockchain. And that's kind of the beginning of, and the end of my remarks. I didn't use the paper, that's why. So, yes. Hi.
Did you say blockchain or
The blockchain.
Okay.
Yeah, because you use blockchain to apply it to, and you know, I think it's about inclusivity and minority voice. It's financially lucrative, yes. Crypto is the very, very tippy top of that. Everybody needs to do that, because also generation of wealth generates impetus on the upward hierarchy of society, right? Like, it's one of the ways that you increase power. But there are other ways too. Like, imagine blockchain application in criminal justice reform. Right? Yes, hi.
So what is the first step or first use case to implement the blockchain?
Implement the blockchain. Well, we have to create it. I think the first thing that you do is we have to address some of the historic problems. If you feel that your society, for Muslims, for example, one of the things that or women, or in this case, since I'm at the Black Blockchain Summit, I really looked at some of the ways that it could be specifically used to address cultural, I don't want to say injustice, but I don't know another word in English to mean something like that. Like smart contracts, right? One of the things that I always found really fascinating about the foundation of the United States was that people who weren't allowed freedom were fighting for a freedom that they were promised and didn't get. That wouldn't happen in the age of smart contracts, right? Because the assets would have been held as collateral and they would have been instantly verified and transferred. So I wonder about all of those slaves who were fighting for a freedom that they didn't get, and how long that perpetuated. What sort of things are happening today? Yes?
Two questions. One statement, but did you know Dubai in January, their whole government is going to be ran off blockchain?
That's right.
So that's one thing.
Yes.
It's sad to see how blockchain technology is not really a main topic in the States.
Yes.
But I was just telling somebody outside, that's showing you the decline of where we at. So like the people who take advantage of I've been in blockchain technology since 2008, but the people who get involved now, I mean, that's the future right there.
Yeah.
Because that's what I wanted to say. But then the question I had to you is, what's the difference between the blockchain and the blockchain? Are y'all building a separate blockchain that's for black people to be used for black people, or because you know it's ubiquitous?
Yeah. No, it's sort of a concept that I came up with our group to mean servicing specifically unique to the Black community solutions that are outside of the crypto space. Criminal justice reform for me in the United States would be one, right? Or again, with those Moo Fresh lyrics, or Narsi, an Iraqi Canadian artist who talks about this all the time and talks about systemic injustice. Anybody who wants to know about the misapplication or the asymmetry between hierarchy and power has to remember those words, I can't breathe.
I just had a comment because you keep using blockchain, but I just wanted you to know that Isaiah Jackson, who spoke yesterday, who has the book,
Black people, right.
Blockchain is one of their companies.
Yes.
But it, it's encompassing all the elements that he talked about in creating blockchain solutions at churches and this.
That's exactly right.
So I don't know if you were in contact.
No, not at all. But I know that because so I work with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and with the Dubai Government Summit in creating those sorts of social infrastructures, not necessarily for Dubai, but like I said, for the world's bottom 2 billion now, and then for the 86% of people in 2050 who will make less than $2 and who will be perpetually hungry. So food security is something that's really big for me, right? And for where I live in a hyper-arid region of North Africa where food and water access will only, and we have the dam between Egypt and Ethiopia, and those issues will only be increasing for our people. But I remain optimistic that collectively we will be able to innovate a future. So the idea of the blockchain came to, aside from the fact that it's a really pithy turn of phrase and that he has a book of it, you know what I mean? I think it's, we developed that independently and then we came to know of each other. So my stuff at Harvard, and it's the same thing, and which should only say, but he gets full credit obviously because he made the book and I'm just a teaching fellow up at Harvard. But he definitely, that should say that there's something there, right? That what that means to me is that there's a consensus of solidarity and that within the community there is enough intellectual prowess and hustle. I mean, he just said he'd build a rocket back from the moon. I would probably huddle up in a ball and freak out a little bit. But there's a lot of ingenuity in the space, and that it requires that kind of unity of thought and unity of purpose. Because if the infrastructure isn't built by you, it will be built for you. And I promise you, the same injustices that you see in the system now will carry into the future. But you have a voice. It's your table. And I say that to every group that I speak to. It's your table. What are you going to build with it? Humans tend to move in the direction that their eyes are facing. So what are we going to build together? And I think that's the point of the blockchain.
Let's have a question from Durad.
Yes.
Good
Good afternoon.
afternoon.
What's your starting point for the blockchain? It seems to me like three primary points of friction as far as development in Africa are access to water, access to energy, and monetary instability.
That's right.
So where would be your inflection point? And the other question, or your starting point? And the other question, will your blockchain have interoperability with existing projects that have already used those as points that they want to develop solutions?
Yes, absolutely. I think that it's not, I'm a very big believer in collaboration and open source. For me, what I think doesn't matter. I think what you have to really look at is what the population does. And you see it in marginalized communities all the time. What's the first thing that people do, Tone, when they get enough energy and they have a network computer? They don't create water infrastructure. They mine, right? Because we all know that the currency of power is currency, right? It's the ability to exchange services and goods for some sort of reliable source to provide for you and the ones you love. Now, for me, it's different. For me, I'm not so much concerned with that because I know that we look out for that in and of ourselves. Crypto is the first and is the most exciting and the most, and if you listen to any of the podcasts of most of the people in the room, like the wars between the different coins is something that's taking off for itself. My world in blockchain is underutilized. Like the potential of the technology is not being realized by the manifestation of the applications, which is a bad thing for infrastructure, but it's a good thing for the people who are going to rise up and innovate and create the solutions in the space. For me, probably because of the sheer lack that I work with and that I see every day, access to food and access to water, I believe President Mandela and I believe Gandhi when they say things like, a hungry man knows no God but his next meal. And so for me, the access to that basic human infrastructure, the ability to feed yourself is where I start. I started with water. I started with water security.
All right. Any more questions? We have time for 2.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Some of the women, Dr. Wandarman died, as well as Shiva Vedanta,
Yes,
working with women.
yes.
And those women decided through families to plant trees,
Yes.
millions of trees. How is it that the Bitcoin hierarchy and power
Yeah.
can take its resources to rebuild up the lungs
Of the planet.
of the planet?
Yeah. Oh. One tree at a time. One tree at a time. Now, this is a very, very sensitive subject for me. I think that Africa is the historically most exploited natural resource system on the face of the earth. I think that the stuff that we've seen coming out of Bolivia and Brazil, I hate referring to all of the nations and peoples and languages and religions and civilizations and histories of Africa as one unified place, right? But for shorthand, you can argue that what's happening in the Amazon and what's happening in Bolivia will be equally devastating, but nowhere, I think, near as long a history of the exploitation that we see, and we're dealing with that sort of residue. Nobody's going to plant the trees for us. It's not coming, right? And often, when you're looking at allocation of energy and resources, environmental projects come way below human survival. And so to me, those are the things that are the most crucial. I think that civilizations and societies will survive because of our soil. I have a large-scale permaculture project that I did with our nomadic people, the Bedu, relying on no government infrastructure from anywhere along the path to prove that poverty can be made and poverty can be unmade. That when you take a nomadic people who have dignity and integrity and are tied to the earth and then settle them in an area, within 2 generations you create poverty. So we showed within 10 years that by managing those systems, by managing that ecosystem, you can reverse those conditions that we would call poverty, namely reliance on someone else, reliance on a government infrastructure for survival. The key is integration with the environment and nature and the soil. That is one of the crucial aspects for me of a revitalized Africa. I look at that in terms of the waterway for my own country. When I look at the way our 100 million people will be 140 million people, how will we survive with climate change, desertification, lack of water, water wars with the surrounding countries and the riparian treaties that have been going on for 100 years? We do it one tree at a time.
All right. Thank you, Mona.